Coming up on HDMI Test Bench, we use a variety of tools, including Meridio's 8K Fox and Hound test kit to check out AudioQuest's Cinnamon 48 line of HDMI cables. How's it going, home theater fans? My name is Todd Anderson, editor at the home theater forum, avnirvana.com, and today we have two different lengths of AudioQuest's Cinnamon 48 cables. That's a 0.75 meter length and a 5 meter length back in the workshop and on the test bench. This is the third installment of our AudioQuest HDMI cable review series. The company has a brand image synonymous with quality, and just to note, that reputation is definitely well deserved. It also comes along with price points that land on the higher side of things. So if you're budget shopping, these will probably fall outside of your comfort zone. The cables we're testing today have MSRPs of $149 and $429. If you haven't watched our HDMI Test Bench primer video for AudioQuest and would like to have a better understanding of its entire range of HDMI cables and how these Cinnamon 48 cables fit into the entire picture of what they have to offer, hit pause and look for a link down in the description below. Now, these cables are sold through a variety of retailers. You can look for a complete list right on AudioQuest's website. I've dropped links to a couple e-retailers, that is Amazon.com and WorldwideStereo.com. I've dropped links to those right down below. Now, the Cinnamon 48 line offers you, of course, 48 gigabits per second of data pass-through. That means that it can handle 8K 60 Hz video along with all of the features contained within the HDMI 2.1 specification. Falling in line with AudioQuest's reputation for quality, the company says the Cinnamon line benefits from long-grain copper conductors with 1.25% silver plating on AV and ER channels, giving the cable what AudioQuest identifies as a level 3 noise dissipation rating. It also features a high-loss carbon layer sandwiched between layers of metal around the 4 data channels and both eARC pairs for high-level noise dissipation. Now, that's a lot of fancy terminology, and I guess it begs the question, does it actually make a difference and give you improved performance? And the answer from my perspective is an unknown. I guess it could possibly matter depending on what kind of environment you're deploying the cable in, but it's not something that I can measure here on the bench. Because this is an ultra high-speed cable, you'll want to look for and scan the HDMI QR code on the box and confirm that the resulting information matches your cable. In the case of the Cinnamon 48 cables I have on the hand, they both scan without issue, but this is a good way for you to make sure that you're not getting something that is counterfeit. Like all of the other AudioQuest cables we've reviewed on HDMI Test Bench, the packaging that comes with these cables is totally on point. I really love the various names they've given different models in their HDMI cable series at AudioQuest, and the outward-facing qualities of the packaging are super appealing to the eye. Now, internally, the cable is secured to a piece of cardboard with these wire ties, and I said this in the last review installment. I'd rather these ties were reusable Velcro. That would be a nice little touch. Possibly this is just a minor gripe, but for the cost of these cables, it would be nice to have those included as a little thank you add-on. Physically speaking, both of these cables appear to be well made, but as you'll notice in the photos, they are different. The longer length has a PVC jacket, while the shorter length has a braided jacket. And that braided jacket adds a little bit of stiffness and memory to the cable when you bend it. Also, you'll note the plug heads have directionality that's not unlike other passive cables in the AudioQuest HDMI lineup. Now, AudioQuest says that all 19 conductors in the cable are directional to minimize RF noise, and like the other reviews I've done on these AudioQuest passive cables, there's a link in the description that will take you to AudioQuest discussion on the matter. I did measure these cables going in both direction, and there was not a performance drop-off in terms of data transfer. Now, whether or not you can ultimately perceive a difference or realize performance benefits due to directionality is going to be up to you to decide. Now, in terms of overall length, Both cables measured exactly as advertised. Let's take a look at some of the physical measurements to give you a better idea of how these cables handle in the real world. Okay, and you can see right there, any measurement you see in white is shared between the two lengths, while the yellow numbers are designated for the 0.75 meter cable, and the orange numbers are for the 5 meter cable. And as you can see right there, the shorter cable is a little bit thinner and slightly more flexible when it comes to static bend radius. Also, it's worth noting they both share the same plug head size. Ultimately, what this all means is that the shorter length can accommodate a slightly tighter space between a wall and the backside of a component. And you can see there that you'll need to give yourself about 4 inches of space between that vertical surface and your component or display, just to make sure you're not putting too much stress on the HDMI port. As for performance, I analyzed both cables using Meridio's 8K Fox and Hound test kit, along with real-world tests consisting of a range of different sources. Because this is a passive cable, we started with a continuity test. A full bank of red lights that you see right there means we have shielding in place and all of the channels are terminated properly. Next, I tested each cable with the Fox and Hound's cable test mode, where I asked it to confirm a 5-volt connection and 40 gigabits per second of bandwidth. And you can see right there that both cables passed. Both cables also reliably handled pass-through of an 8K 60 Hz signal with HDR10 and HDCP 2.x engaged, along with all 8 channels of audio. Now on to real-world tests, where I challenged this cable with Kaleidoscape's 4K Strato C player, a Panasonic UB820 4K disc player, along with 4K versions of Apple TV and Roku Ultra. I also tested lag using a Nintendo Switch, and visually, to my eyes, there was no lag present. And here you can see the Cinnamon 48 connecting a Panasonic UB820 4K player to a JVC NZ8 projector. It's playing a 4K version of the film Gemini Man, which is a 4K 60 Hz film, and there are no issues. In addition, both cables passed hot plugging scenarios with all 5 sources. So the verdict, well, this cable series gets a stamp of approval from HDMI Test Bench. As we found, both cables are totally capable of passing through 40 gigabits per second, which means they should be able to handle the entire range of features offered in the HDMI 2.1 specification. The only thing you need to consider is kind of a little bit of the stiffness in the cable itself. It needs about, as I showed you, 4 inches of space between a component and a vertical surface. So if you have a super tight space behind your components or your TV or your display device, whatever it is you're plugging this cable into, just make sure that you have enough space to accommodate a bend without putting a lot of pressure on that HDMI port. All right, folks, that's all I have for you right now. Check down in the description below for the other AudioQuest HDMI cable test reviews. And aside from that, we'll see you next time on HDMI Test Bench.